A billionaire saw his maid with her daughter at the airport. What he discovered broke his heart. Marcus Wellington III stood in the first-class lounge at JFK International Airport, his Armani suit perfectly pressed, his leather briefcase containing contracts worth millions. At 32, he had everything: a penthouse overlooking Central Park, a successful tech empire, and a stunning fiancée, Victoria Ashford, who was currently adjusting her designer sunglasses as she scrolled through her phone beside him. Their flight to Paris wouldn't board for another hour. A romantic getaway she'd planned down to the smallest detail. "Darling, I'm going to freshen up," Victoria announced, her heels clicking against the marble floor as she headed toward the restroom. Marcus nodded absently, his mind already running through the business meetings scheduled for next week. He wandered toward the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the terminal, coffee in hand, watching the organized chaos of travelers below. That's when he saw her. Elena Rodriguez. His housekeeper for the past 2 years, the quiet woman who came 3 times a week to clean his sprawling penthouse, always arriving early and leaving without fuss. But something was terribly wrong. Even from this distance, he could see her shoulders shaking, her head bowed as she sat on a bench near gate 47. In her arms, she clutched a small child, a little girl he'd never seen before, with dark curls that bounced as she squirmed in her mother's embrace. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Elena had always been professional, reserved, never sharing much about her personal life beyond polite pleasantries. He knew she was reliable, honest, and had a gentle way about her that made his usually cold penthouse feel somehow warmer on the days she was there. But this? Seeing her in obvious distress, with a child, at an airport on a Friday evening? Nothing made sense. Without thinking, Marcus set down his coffee and left the lounge, ignoring the attendant's curious glance. He took the escalator down to the main terminal, weaving through families and business travelers, his eyes fixed on that bench near gate 47. As he got closer, he could hear Elena's soft voice, speaking in Spanish to the little girl, words of comfort mixed with barely suppressed sobs. "Elena?" His voice was gentle, uncertain. She looked up, and Marcus felt his heart crack. Her usually bright brown eyes were red and swollen from crying, mascara streaking down her cheeks. The little girl, maybe 3 years old, stared at him with wide, curious eyes, her tiny hand clutching a worn stuffed rabbit. "Mr. Wellington," Elena gasped, hastily wiping her face with the back of her hand. "I'm so sorry, I didn't think." She tried to compose herself, to slip back into the professional mask he was accustomed to seeing, but her voice broke. "Please, you shouldn't see me like this." "Elena, what's wrong? What are you doing here?" Marcus crouched down to her level, ignoring the stares of passers-by. "And who is this beautiful little one?" Elena's arms tightened around the child. "This is my daughter, Sophia. She's 3. The words came out in a whisper, as if she was ashamed to admit it. "Mr. Wellington, I apologize for never mentioning her. I didn't want to seem unprofessional. I couldn't risk losing my job. A single mother without family here, without papers." Her voice trailed off. "You thought I would fire you for having a daughter?" Marcus asked, incredulous. "I've seen it happen to others," Elena said quietly. "Employers who don't want complications, who prefer their help to be unattached. I needed this job. Sophia and we depend on it." Marcus felt a wave of shame wash over him. Had he been so distant, so cold, that this woman, who had been in his home for 2 years, felt she couldn't trust him with something so fundamental? "Elena, I would never. Where are you going? What's happening?" The tears flowed freely now, and Elena didn't bother to wipe them away. "We're being deported. My visa expired 3 months ago, and I couldn't renew it. I tried everything, lawyers, applications, appeals, but nothing worked. Immigration found us last week. They're sending us back to Guatemala tonight. Gate 47, flight leaves in 90 minutes. Marcus looked at the departure board above them. Sure enough, there it was, Guatemala City, 8:45 p.m., Gate 47, boarding soon. "But you're home. Your life. It's all here, isn't it? Elena nodded, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. Sophia was born here in Queens. She's American, but she's too young to stay without me. And I have nothing left in Guatemala. No family, no job, no future. I came here 8 years ago to escape poverty, violence. I worked so hard, Mr. Wellington. I cleaned houses, I learned English, I saved every penny. When Sophia came, I thought we could build a life here. A good life. Safe. But now. She looked down at her daughter, who had started to doze against her chest. Now we have to go back to nothing. Marcus stood, his mind racing. This couldn't be happening. Not to Elena, not to this innocent child. He glanced back toward the escalator, knowing Victoria would be looking for him, knowing their flight to Paris was waiting. But how could he walk away from this? Have you eaten? He asked suddenly. Elena looked confused.
What?
No, we haven't. I couldn't, my stomach. Come with me, Marcus said, extending his hand. Both of you. Let me at least buy you dinner before your flight. Elena hesitated, but Sophia stirred, murmuring, Mama, hungry. Please, Marcus insisted. Let me do this much. Finally, Elena nodded, taking his hand and letting him help her to her feet. As they walked toward a nearby restaurant, Marcus's phone buzzed insistently in his pocket. Victoria, no doubt, wondering where he'd disappeared to. But for the first time in years, Marcus Wellington III didn't care about his schedule, his reputation, or his perfectly planned life. All he could think about was the 28-year-old woman beside him and her 3-year-old daughter, about to board a plane that would tear them away from the only home one of them had ever known. The airport restaurant was nothing special, a chain establishment with mediocre food and harsh fluorescent lighting, but Marcus secured a quiet corner booth, away from the bustle of hurried travelers. Elena settled Sophia into a high chair, the little girl now fully awake and eyeing Marcus with innocent curiosity. She's beautiful, Marcus said softly, watching as Sophia played with her stuffed rabbit, making it hop across the table. She has your eyes. Elena managed a small, sad smile. Everyone says that. She's my whole world, Mr. Wellington. Everything I've done, every sacrifice, it's all been for her. A waitress appeared, and Marcus ordered without looking at the menu. Chicken fingers and fries for Sophia, soup and sandwiches for Elena and himself, hot chocolate for the little girl, and coffee for the adults. As the waitress walked away, his phone buzzed again. He glanced at the screen. Victoria. 7 missed calls. You should answer, Elena said, noticing his hesitation. Someone's worried about you. Marcus silenced the phone. It can wait. Talk to me, Elena. Help me understand how this happened. And so she told him everything. The words poured out between sips of coffee and bites of sandwich she could barely swallow. 8 years of struggle and hope and desperate love condensed into fragmented sentences. She'd come to America at 20, fleeing an abusive boyfriend and a country where opportunities for young women were limited and dangerous. She'd crossed the border with a tourist visa and stayed when it expired, joining the millions of undocumented immigrants living in the shadows. She'd worked 3 jobs, cleaning houses by day, waiting tables at night, and doing laundry on weekends. She'd shared a cramped apartment in Queens with 5 other women, sending money back to her mother in Guatemala until the day she received news that her mother had passed away from an illness they couldn't afford to treat. After that, I had no one, Elena said, her voice steady despite the pain in her eyes. I was completely alone. I thought about going back, but what was there for me? Poverty? Violence? I'd worked so hard to build something here, even if it was small, even if it was illegal. So I stayed. Then, 5 years ago, she'd met someone, an American man named David, who'd promised her everything. Love, marriage, citizenship, a real life. Elena had believed him, had trusted him completely. When she'd gotten pregnant, she'd been terrified but also hopeful. A baby, an American baby, would be her anchor to this country, and David had promised to marry her before Sophia was born. But he left, Elena said flatly, stirring her coffee without drinking it. 2 months before Sophia arrived, he just disappeared. Changed his number, moved out of his apartment, vanished. I found out later he was engaged to someone else the whole time. I was just a distraction. A mistake. Marcus felt anger rise in his chest, hot and protective. Elena, I'm so sorry. She shrugged, a gesture of resignation he'd seen countless times in his own employees, people who'd learned not to expect fairness from the world. It doesn't matter now. What mattered was Sophia. I had her at Queen's General Hospital, and the moment I held her, I knew I'd do anything to give her a better life. She's American, Mr. Wellington. She was born here. This is her home. And I've tried so hard to make it work. Sophia had been a healthy baby, thank God, and Elena had taken only 2 weeks off work before returning to her jobs, carrying her infant daughter to houses where sympathetic employers let her work with a baby strapped to her chest. She'd saved enough to move into her own tiny studio apartment, nothing fancy, but clean and safe and theirs. She'd applied for programs to help low-income families, but without documentation, options were limited. Still, she'd managed. When I started working for you 2 years ago, it felt like things were finally getting better, Elena continued. You paid me fairly, you were always respectful, and the work was steady. I could afford better childcare for Sophia. I enrolled her in a preschool program. I was even taking English classes online, trying to improve myself. I thought maybe, somehow, I could find a way to fix my immigration status. She'd consulted with lawyers, expensive ones who'd taken most of her savings and delivered nothing but bad news. Without an American spouse, without sponsorship from an employer willing to navigate the complex visa system, without extraordinary circumstances, there was no path to citizenship for her. She was, legally speaking, an impossibility, a person who'd overstayed her welcome and had no right to the life she'd built. 3 months ago, my visa officially expired. I knew it was coming, but I kept hoping for a miracle, Elena said, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Then last week, ICE came to my apartment. A neighbor must have reported me. They were actually kind about it, if you can believe that. They gave me a week to get my affairs in order, to arrange my flight. They said because I had no criminal record and a young child, they'd let me self-deport rather than holding us in detention. They called it mercy. Marcus's hands clenched around his coffee cup. Mercy. This was mercy? Ripping a mother and child from their home, sending them to a country one of them had never known. All because of paperwork and bureaucracy? What about Sophia? He asked. She's American. Can't she stay? Elena's eyes filled with fresh tears. She's 3 years old, Mr. Wellington. Yes, legally, she's a citizen. But what would you have me do? Leave her here with strangers while I go back alone? She needs her mother. And I can't be without her. So we go together, back to a place where I have nothing, where we'll live in poverty, where her American birth certificate means nothing except that she'll always know what she lost. Sophia, oblivious to her mother's pain, had finished her chicken fingers and was now humming a little song, making her rabbit dance across the table toward Marcus. He picked up a napkin and folded it into a simple paper crane, something his own mother had taught him years ago. Sophia's eyes went wide with delight, and she reached for it with sticky fingers. Pretty, she declared, her voice high and sweet. You like it? Marcus asked, and Sophia nodded enthusiastically. She doesn't understand what's happening, Elena said softly. I've tried to explain that we're going on an airplane, that we're going to a new place, but she just thinks it's an adventure. She doesn't know we can't come back. She doesn't know she's losing her home. Marcus watched Sophia play with the paper crane, her innocence a stark contrast to the cruelty of the situation. This child had done nothing wrong. She'd been born in the wrong circumstances, to a mother who'd made the impossible choice to stay in a country that would never fully accept her, all for the dream of something better. His phone buzzed again. This time he looked. Victoria. Where are you? Our flight boards in 30 minutes. This is unacceptable. He thought about Paris, about the luxury hotel suite waiting for them, about the life he'd built that was so far removed from the reality Elena and Sophia faced. How had he become so insulated, so blind to the struggles of people like Elena? People who worked in his home, who made his comfortable life possible, who remained invisible until a chance encounter at an airport forced him to truly see them. "I need to make a phone call," Marcus said abruptly, standing up. "Will you wait here? Please don't leave yet." Elena looked confused but nodded. "Our flight doesn't board for another 45 minutes. Marcus walked outside the restaurant, his mind racing as he scrolled through his contacts. He'd built his fortune on technology, on apps that connected people and solved problems. Surely, there had to be a solution here, something he could do. He'd never felt more powerless, and he'd never been more determined to fight that powerlessness. He dialed a number he hadn't called in months, his attorney, Daniel Morrison, the best immigration lawyer in New York. Marcus stood outside the restaurant, phone pressed to his ear as Daniel Morrison's tired voice answered on the fourth ring. "Marcus? It's almost 9 on a Friday night. This better be." "I need your help," Marcus interrupted, his voice urgent. "Immigration case. Mother and child being deported tonight. Is there anything at all we can do to stop it?" There was a pause, then the sound of papers rustling. "Tonight? Marcus, that's complicated. Tell me everything." Marcus explained as quickly as he could. Elena's situation, Sophia's citizenship, the flight leaving in less than an hour. He could hear Daniel typing, muttering to himself, and with each passing second, Marcus's hope dimmed. "Okay, listen," Daniel finally said. "In theory, there are emergency stays we could file, humanitarian parole requests, but those take time to process, and frankly, without extraordinary circumstances, they rarely work for cases like this. The mother overstayed her visa. That's a difficult starting point. The child's citizenship helps, but not enough for an immediate intervention. If we had weeks, maybe months, I could build a case, find angles, but hours? Marcus, I'm sorry, but I don't see a legal path here that would work in time." "There has to be something," Marcus insisted, his voice rising. "Money isn't an issue. Whatever it costs, I'll pay it." "This isn't about money," Daniel said gently. "This is about law and bureaucracy, and a system that doesn't move at the speed we need it to right now." "I'm sorry." "I truly am." Marcus ended the call, his heart sinking. He'd never encountered a problem he couldn't solve, never met an obstacle his wealth couldn't overcome. The helplessness was infuriating. His phone immediately rang again. Victoria. He couldn't avoid her any longer. "Where the hell are you?" Her voice was ice and fury. "Our flight to Paris boards in 15 minutes, Marcus." 15 minutes. "I've been looking everywhere for you. The gate attendants are holding the plane, but they won't wait much longer." "Victoria, something's come up. I need you to listen." "No, you listen," she snapped. "I've been planning this trip for 3 months. 3 months. The hotel, the reservations at Michelin-starred restaurants, the private tour of Versailles. Do you have any idea how much effort I put into this? And you disappear without a word. There's a woman, my housekeeper. She and her daughter are being deported tonight. I found them at the airport and—" Victoria's laugh was sharp, disbelieving. "Your housekeeper? You're missing our flight to Paris because of the help? Marcus, have you lost your mind?" The contempt in her voice made something inside Marcus go cold. "Her name is Elena. She's 28 years old, she's a single mother, and she's being sent back to Guatemala, where she has nothing. Her daughter was born here, Victoria. She's an American citizen being forced to leave her own country." "And that's tragic, I'm sure," Victoria said, her tone making it clear she found it anything but. "But it's not your problem, Marcus. People deal with immigration issues every day. You can write her a check if it makes you feel better, but we need to leave. Now." Marcus looked through the restaurant window at Elena, who was helping Sophia drink her hot chocolate, wiping the little girl's chin with a napkin. The tenderness in that simple gesture, the fierce love in Elena's eyes as she looked at her daughter, struck him with unexpected force. "I can't leave yet," he said quietly. There was a long, dangerous silence on the other end of the line. "Excuse me? I need to see this through, Victoria. I need to help them if I can." "Help them?" Victoria's voice rose to a near shriek. "Marcus Wellington, if you miss this flight for some illegal immigrant and her bastard child, We are done. Do you hear me? Done. The ugliness of her words, the casual cruelty, hit Marcus like a physical blow. In that moment, he saw Victoria clearly for perhaps the first time. Not the poised socialite he'd been dating for 18 months, not the woman who looked perfect on his arm at charity galas and business dinners, but someone whose empathy extended only as far as her social circle, whose compassion had borders and limits and conditions. Sophia is 3 years old, Marcus said, his voice dangerously quiet. She's an innocent child. And Elena has worked for me for 2 years. She's been nothing but honest and hardworking and kind. I'm not abandoning them. Then you're abandoning me, Victoria hissed. Choose, Marcus.
Right now.
Them or me. Your housekeeper or your fiancé. Your fake hero complex or the life we're building together. Marcus closed his eyes. 24 hours ago, the choice would have been simple. Victoria was beautiful, well-connected, from the right family. She understood his world, his ambitions. They made sense on paper. But now, presented with this ultimatum, he felt only a deep, bone-deep certainty about what mattered. I'm sorry, Victoria, but I can't leave them. The silence on the other end was absolute. Then, you're choosing a maid over me? A maid and her illegal brat? I'm choosing to do the right thing, Marcus said. Something I should have been doing all along. You are making the biggest mistake of your life, Victoria said, her voice venomous. When you come crawling back, and you will, don't expect me to forgive you. We're done, Marcus. Done. The line went dead. Marcus stood there for a moment, phone in hand, waiting for regret or panic to set in. Instead, he felt only a strange sense of relief, as if a weight he hadn't known he was carrying had lifted from his shoulders. He'd just ended his engagement, blown up his relationship, missed a flight to Paris, all for a woman and child he barely knew. And yet, walking back into the restaurant, seeing Elena's hopeful, uncertain expression as she looked up at him, he knew he'd made the right choice. Mr. Wellington? Elena asked tentatively. Are you all right? You look... I'm fine, Marcus said, sliding back into the booth. I just called my attorney. He's working on some options. It was a lie, or at least an optimistic stretching of the truth, but he couldn't bear to extinguish the tiny spark of hope that flickered in Elena's eyes. Really, she whispered. You would do that? For us? Elena, Marcus struggled for words. I know we haven't been close. I know I've been just your employer, probably not even a particularly thoughtful one. But seeing you here, learning about Sophia, about everything you've been through, I can't just walk away. I won't. Sophia had climbed down from her high chair and was now standing beside Marcus's seat, tugging on his sleeve. Mister? You make more birds. Marcus smiled despite everything and grabbed another napkin. His hands were shaking slightly, adrenaline from his conversation with Victoria still coursing through him, but he managed to fold another crane, this one slightly lopsided. Sophia clapped her hands together in delight. Thank you, she said, her toddler pronunciation making thank you sound impossibly sweet. Elena watched the interaction, her eyes filling with tears again. Mr. Wellington, you don't have to do this. You have your own life, your own plans. I saw you with that beautiful woman in the first-class lounge earlier. You shouldn't be here with us. You should be living your life. That beautiful woman just ended our engagement because I wouldn't abandon you, Marcus said matter-of-factly. So I guess I'm free to be wherever I choose. And right now, I choose to be here. Elena's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. Mr. Wellington, no. You can't, you didn't because of me? Because of what's right, Marcus corrected. There's a difference. An announcement crackled over the airport speakers. Final boarding call for Flight 447 to Guatemala City, departing from Gate 47. All passengers should be on board. Final boarding call. Elena went pale. That's us. We have to go. Not yet, Marcus said, though he had no plan, no solution, nothing but a desperate need to buy more time. Let me make another call. Please, Elena. 5 more minutes. She looked torn, terrified of missing the flight and facing legal consequences, but also clinging to the impossible hope that somehow this stranger who'd shown her more kindness in 1 hour than most had in years might actually save them. 5 minutes, she agreed, her voice barely audible. Marcus stepped outside again, his mind racing. Daniel had said there was no legal solution in time, but maybe there was another way. He scrolled through his contacts until he found the name he was looking for, Senator Patricia Chun, whom he'd donated generously to during her last campaign. It was a long shot, maybe impossible, but he had to try. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. It was Friday night. She probably wouldn't even answer. But then, Marcus Wellington? To what do I owe the pleasure? Marcus took a deep breath and began to speak, his words tumbling out in a rush as he explained the situation, asked for help, begged for intervention. Senator Chin listened without interrupting, and when he finished, there was a long, heavy silence. Marcus, she finally said, her voice kind but firm, I wish I could help. I truly do. But even if I wanted to use my influence here, and it would be ethically questionable for me to do so, it would take days, maybe weeks, to even make a phone call that might matter. Immigration cases are complicated. And without extraordinary circumstances, there's nothing I can do that would stop this deportation tonight. Marcus felt his last hope crumbling. So, that's it? She just leaves? Goes back to a country where she has nothing, where her daughter will grow up in poverty. All because of bureaucracy. I'm sorry, Senator Chin said softly. The system isn't perfect. It isn't even close to fair. But sometimes, Marcus, all we can do is be there for people in their worst moments. Sometimes presence is the only gift we can give. Marcus ended the call and stood there in the harsh fluorescent light of the airport, feeling more powerless than he'd ever felt in his privileged life. He had billions in the bank, connections to some of the most powerful people in the world, and none of it mattered. None of it could save Elena and Sophia. He walked back into the restaurant, where Elena was already gathering their things, hoisting Sophia onto her hip. The little girl was crying now, sensing her mother's distress, and Elena was trying to comfort her while fighting back her own tears. I'm sorry, Marcus said, the words inadequate and hollow. I tried everything I could think of, but I couldn't. I'm so sorry, Elena. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Together, they walked toward Gate 47, Marcus carrying Elena's single battered suitcase, Elena carrying her entire world in her arms. With each step, Marcus's heart broke a little more, fury and helplessness warring inside him.
This wasn't how it was supposed to end.
But he was beginning to realize that sometimes life didn't care about how things were supposed to be. Gate 47 was nearly empty when they arrived, just a few stragglers finishing their boarding process. The gate agent, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes, looked up as they approached. Are you Elena Rodriguez? She asked, checking her tablet. Yes, Elena whispered. You're the last ones. We were about to close the gate. Boarding passes, please. Elena fumbled in her bag with shaking hands, pulling out 2 boarding passes, one for her, one for Sophia, who was still crying softly against her mother's shoulder. Marcus stood behind them, his mind still racing, searching for solutions that didn't exist. The gate agent took the passes, scanned them, and handed them back. Gates down the jetway, all the way to the end. Safe travels. It was so casual, so routine for her, just another flight, just another family. She had no idea she was facilitating a tragedy. Elena turned to Marcus, tears streaming down her face. Mr. Wellington, I don't know how to thank you for tonight. For listening, for caring, for trying. Most people like you, they don't even see people like me. We're invisible.
But you saw me.
You saw Sophia. That's a gift I'll never forget. Marcus couldn't speak. His throat was too tight, his heart too broken. Instead, he pulled out his wallet and extracted every bill he had. It wasn't much, maybe $500 in cash, but it was something. Please take this, he said, pressing the money into Elena's hand. It's not enough, I know, but maybe it will help when you land. Maybe. I can't, Elena protested, trying to hand it back. Please, Marcus insisted, closing her fingers around the bills. Let me do this one thing. Sophia had stopped crying and was looking at Marcus with those wide, innocent eyes. She reached out her small hand and touched his face, her palm warm against his cheek. Don't cry, mister, she said softly. Marcus hadn't realized he was crying until she said it. He wiped his eyes roughly, embarrassed, but Sophia just smiled at him. That pure, uncomplicated smile that children have before the world teaches them to guard their hearts. You're a good man, Elena said, her voice breaking. The world needs more people like you. She turned toward the jetway, and Marcus watched her take one step, then another. This was it. This was really happening. In a few hours, Elena and Sophia would be in Guatemala, and he'd be back in his empty penthouse, unable to do anything but remember this night and the failure that came with it. But then, standing there at the gate, watching Elena's retreating back, something inside Marcus shifted. He thought about his life, the business deals, the expensive dinners, the charity galas where he wrote checks to ease his conscience without ever truly engaging with the problems he claimed to care about. He thought about Victoria, about how easily she dismissed Elena and Sophia as beneath consideration. He thought about the system that could tear families apart, that could send a 3-year-old American citizen away from her own country, and how he never truly questioned any of it until this moment. And he made a decision. Elena, wait, he called out. She turned, confusion and hope warring on her face. Marcus walked up to her, his heart pounding. What if you didn't go?
What?
Mr. Wellington, I don't understand. I have to go. If I don't get on this plane, they'll arrest me, put me in detention. I can't do that to Sophia. What if you had a reason to stay? Marcus interrupted. A legal reason? Elena stared at him, uncomprehending. There is no legal reason. We've been through every option with the lawyers. There's one option you haven't tried, Marcus said, the plan forming even as he spoke, crazy and impulsive and possibly the most important thing he'd ever do. Marry me. The words hung in the air between them, impossible and absurd. What? Elena's voice was barely a whisper. Marry me, Marcus repeated, more firmly this time.
Tonight. Right now.
I'm an American citizen. If we get married, you'd have a path to a green card, to citizenship. You could stay. Sophia could stay. You'd be safe. Elena was shaking her head, backing away. Mr. Wellington, you can't be serious.
You don't even know me.
I'm your housekeeper. You just broke up with your fiancé a few hours ago. This is crazy. It is crazy, Marcus agreed. It's absolutely insane. But it's also the only solution I can think of. Elena, I can't let you get on that plane. I can't let Sophia grow up in poverty when I have the power to prevent it. I can't walk away from this and live with myself. But marriage? Mr. Wellington, that's a huge commitment. You can't just marry someone to solve their immigration problems. That's fraud. You could get in legal trouble. Only if it's not a real marriage, Marcus said. And who's to say it won't be? We'd be making a commitment to try, to see if we could build something real. Maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't, but at least we'd have a chance. At least Sophia would have a chance. The gate agent cleared her throat. Excuse me, but we really need to close this gate. Ma'am, are you boarding or not? Elena looked at the jetway, then at Marcus, then down at Sophia, who was watching the adults with wide, confused eyes. Marcus could see the war raging inside her. Hope against caution, desperation against pride, the maternal instinct to protect her daughter against the fear of being a burden. I can't ask this of you, Elena finally said. It's too much. You'd be giving up your life for people you barely know. Maybe I need to give up my life, Marcus said softly. Or, at least the life I've been living. Elena, in the past 2 hours, I've felt more alive, more purposeful, than I have in years. Victoria was right about one thing, I do have a hero complex. But maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe I'm meant to use my privilege for something that actually matters. Ma'am, the gate agent said more insistently. I need an answer now. Elena's eyes were swimming with tears again, but this time, there was something else there too, a desperate, fragile hope. Are you absolutely sure? I've never been more sure of anything, Marcus said, and as the words left his mouth, he realized they were true. Elena looked down at Sophia, who had started to doze against her shoulder, exhausted from crying. When she looked back up at Marcus, her decision was written all over her face. "We're not boarding," she told the gate agent, her voice shaking but firm. The gate agent raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, you understand that if you don't board this flight, there will be legal consequences? Immigration will be notified." "I understand," Elena said. "But we're staying. We're staying in America." The gate agent shrugged, making a note on her tablet. "Your choice. Have a good evening." She closed the jetway door, and just like that, it was done. The plane to Guatemala City would leave without them. Elena swayed on her feet, and Marcus quickly took Sophia from her arms before she could drop the sleeping child. The weight of the little girl against his chest felt strange and right all at once, her head tucked under his chin, her breath warm and even. "What do we do now?" Elena asked, her voice small and scared and hopeful. "Now," Marcus said, adjusting Sophia carefully in his arms, "we go find an all-night chapel and get married. Then we call my lawyer and start the paperwork for your green card. And then we figure out the rest as we go." "This is insane," Elena said, but she was smiling through her tears. "Completely insane," Marcus agreed, smiling back. "But sometimes the best decisions are the crazy ones." They walked away from Gate 47 together, the billionaire, the housekeeper, and the sleeping 3-year-old who had no idea that her entire world had just changed. Behind them, the plane taxied toward the runway, carrying other passengers toward other destinies. But for Elena, Sophia, and Marcus, their destiny was just beginning, uncertain and terrifying and full of impossible hope. Marcus's phone buzzed in his pocket, probably Victoria, or his board of directors, or someone else from his old life wondering where he'd gone. He silenced it without looking. That life could wait. Right now, in this moment, he had more important things to do. Like figuring out how to tell a sleeping 3-year-old that she was about to get a stepfather. Like finding a chapel that performed weddings at 10 o'clock on a Friday night. Like starting a marriage that had begun with desperation and might, against all odds, and with love. "Mr. Wellington?" Elena said as they walked through the terminal, drawing stares from other travelers. The man in the expensive suit carrying a child, the woman with the tear-stained face, and the battered suitcase. "Marcus," he corrected. "If we're getting married, you should probably call me Marcus." She smiled, tentative and beautiful. "Marcus, then. Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "What happens if this doesn't work? What happens if the government doesn't believe us? Or if we can't make the marriage feel real? Or if—" "Then we'll deal with it," Marcus said firmly. "Together. One problem at a time." "But Elena, I'm not going into this expecting it to fail. I'm going into this expecting to try. Really try."
Can you do that?
Elena looked at him for a long moment, searching his face for something, sincerity, perhaps, or courage, or just confirmation that this was really happening. Whatever she found must have satisfied her, because she nodded. "Yes," she said softly. "I can try." And with that, they stepped onto an escalator that would carry them up and out of the terminal, toward a future neither of them had planned but both were choosing anyway. Behind them, Gate 47 stood empty, a reminder of the path not taken, the tragedy averted by one man's impulsive decision to care about people society had taught him to overlook. It wasn't a perfect solution. It wasn't even a guaranteed solution. But as Marcus looked down at Sophia's sleeping face, then over at Elena's hopeful expression, he knew it was the right solution. Sometimes, being right was more important than being certain. And sometimes, the heart knew things the mind couldn't explain. Finding an all-night wedding chapel in New York City proved easier than Marcus expected. Apparently, impulsive marriages were more common than he'd realized. By 11 p.m., they were standing in a small, gaudy chapel in Queens, surrounded by plastic flowers and Elvis memorabilia, while a tired-looking officiant who introduced himself as Reverend Chuck prepared the paperwork. "You folks got your marriage license?" Reverend Chuck asked, adjusting his glasses. Marcus's heart sank. We need a license?
Yep.
From the city clerk. But don't worry, there's a 24-hour office 2 blocks from here. They'll fix you up, but there's a 24-hour waiting period in New York before you can actually get married. Elena's face fell. 24 hours? But immigration knows I didn't board that flight. They could come for me any time. Wait, Marcus said, pulling out his phone and searching rapidly. What about other states? Different rules. After 10 minutes of frantic research, they discovered that New Jersey had no waiting period. Within an hour, they were in a taxi heading across state lines to a courthouse in Jersey City that processed emergency marriage licenses. Sophia woke up during the drive, confused and fussy, but Elena soothed her with whispered promises and the last of the crackers from her purse. Mama, where are we going? Sophia asked, rubbing her eyes. On an adventure, mi amor, Elena said, kissing her daughter's forehead. A wonderful adventure. At 1:30 a.m., standing in a fluorescent-lit courthouse with a handful of other couples who decided that 1:30 a.m. was the perfect time to get married, Marcus and Elena exchanged vows. There were no flowers, no music, no guests. Just a court clerk who'd seen everything and was impressively unimpressed by the billionaire in the Armani suit and the housekeeper with the tear-stained face. Do you, Marcus Andrew Wellington III, take Elena Maria Rodriguez to be your lawfully wedded wife? Marcus looked at Elena, at this woman he'd known for 2 years but had never truly seen until tonight. She looked terrified and hopeful and beautiful in her simple dress, holding their sleeping daughter, because that's what Sophia was now, wasn't she? Their daughter. The thought made his chest tight. I do, he said firmly. And do you, Elena Maria Rodriguez, take Marcus Andrew Wellington III to be your lawfully wedded husband? Elena's voice was barely above a whisper, but steady. I do. Then, by the power vested in me by the state of New Jersey, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. They looked at each other awkwardly for a moment. This was their first kiss, Marcus realized. They'd skipped all the normal steps, the dating, the falling in love, the gradual building of intimacy. Instead, they jumped straight from employer and employee to husband and wife in a matter of hours. Gently, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, Marcus leaned in and pressed his lips softly to hers. It was brief, chaste, and yet somehow profound. When he pulled back, Elena's eyes were bright with tears. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for saving us. Thank you for letting me, Marcus whispered back. They signed the marriage certificate with hands that shook from exhaustion and adrenaline and the sheer unreality of what they'd just done. The clerk handed them the official document, wished them good luck in a tone that suggested they'd need it, and called the next couple. At 2 a.m., Marcus, Elena, and Sophia stood on a street corner in Jersey City, legally married, utterly exhausted, and with no idea what to do next. We should get a hotel, Marcus said. All of us need sleep. I can't afford, Elena started. Elena, Marcus said gently. You're my wife now. What's mine is yours. That's how marriage works, right? She looked like she wanted to argue, but exhaustion won out. Okay, she agreed quietly. They found a decent hotel nearby, and Marcus booked a suite with 2 bedrooms. As they rode the elevator up, Sophia fully awake now and fascinated by the mirrors and buttons, Marcus caught sight of their reflection, him disheveled and rumpled, his expensive suit wrinkled, and his tie long gone, Elena clutching their marriage certificate like a lifeline, Sophia holding both their hands, swinging between them. They looked like a family. A strange, mismatched, improbable family, but a family nonetheless. Once in the suite, Elena immediately took Sophia to one of the bedrooms for a bath and to change into pajamas. Marcus could hear them through the door, Elena's soft voice singing a Spanish lullaby, Sophia's giggles as she splashed in the tub. The sounds filled the empty suite with warmth, with life, with something that had been missing from Marcus's penthouse for as long as he could remember. He called Daniel Morrison, waking his attorney for the second time that night. Marcus, it's 2 a.m. What? I got married, Marcus announced. There was a long silence. You what? I married Elena Rodriguez, my housekeeper. The one I called you about earlier. We just came from the courthouse. I need you to start the paperwork for her green card application immediately. Marcus, Daniel said carefully, in the tone one might use with someone standing on a ledge, please tell me you didn't just commit marriage fraud. It's not fraud, Marcus insisted. We're going to make this a real marriage. We're going to live together, build a life together, give it an honest try. Marcus, Immigration Services will investigate this.
Thoroughly.
They'll interview you separately, inspect your living arrangements, talk to friends and family. If they suspect fraud, you could face serious legal consequences. We're talking fines up to $250,000 and up to 5 years in prison. Then we'll make sure they don't suspect fraud, Marcus said firmly. Daniel, I know this seems crazy, but I'm committed to this. Elena and Sophia deserve a chance at a good life, and I'm going to make sure they get it. So please start the paperwork. I'll pay whatever it costs. Daniel sighed, the sound of a lawyer who'd learned not to argue with wealthy clients' bad decisions. I'll send over the forms tomorrow. Well, today, technically. In a few hours. But Marcus, you need to understand what you're signing up for. For this to work, you'll need to actually live together as a married couple. Share finances. Be able to demonstrate a genuine, ongoing relationship. Are you prepared for that? Marcus looked toward the bedroom door, behind which his new wife was putting their daughter to bed. Yes, he said. I am. After ending the call, Marcus showered and changed into the hotel robe, then sat on the couch in the suite's living area, suddenly unsure what to do. Was he supposed to go to the second bedroom? Should he wait for Elena? What were the rules here? Elena emerged from the bedroom 20 minutes later, Sophia presumably asleep. She'd also showered and changed into the hotel robe, her long dark hair damp and hanging loose around her shoulders. Without makeup, with her guard down, she looked younger than 28, vulnerable and lovely. She's out, Elena said softly, coming to sit on the opposite end of the couch, careful to maintain distance between them. She was so tired. She kept asking if we were staying in New York, if she could go back to her preschool on Monday. I told her yes. Her voice broke. I can actually tell her yes now. Because of you. Because of us, Marcus corrected. We're in this together now, Elena. Partners. She nodded, twisting her hands in her lap. Marcus, I need to know. What happens now? Do you expect? She couldn't finish the sentence, but her meaning was clear. No, Marcus said quickly, firmly. Elena, this marriage may have started out as a solution to a problem, but I'm not going to pressure you into anything you're not ready for. We'll take this as slowly as you need. Separate bedrooms, if that's what you want. We'll build trust first, friendship maybe, and then we'll see where it goes. The relief on her face was palpable. Thank you. I know this is strange. I know we're married now, but I barely know you. I need time to adjust. We have time, Marcus assured her. The green card process takes months, maybe over a year. We'll use that time to get to know each other, to build something real. No pressure. Just possibility. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the day finally catching up with them both. Can I ask you something? Elena said quietly. Why did you really do this? And please, don't say it was just to be a hero.
There has to be more to it than that.
Marcus considered the question, searching for honesty. My mother died when I was 10, he finally said. Cancer. My father raised me, but he was distant. Cold. He taught me to build wealth, to win in business, but not how to connect with people. Not how to care. For years, I've been following his template, make money, acquire things, maintain appearances. And I was good at it. But I was empty. He looked at Elena, meeting her eyes. Tonight, when I saw you at that gate, saw you crying with Sophia in your arms, something broke open inside me. Or maybe it woke up. I realized I'd been sleepwalking through my life, surrounded by people who didn't actually care about me, pursuing goals that didn't actually matter. And here you were, a woman who'd sacrificed everything for her daughter, who'd worked so hard just to survive, who had more courage and love in one finger than I had in my whole body. I couldn't walk away from that.
From you.
From the chance to be part of something real. Elena's eyes were wet with tears. I'm not some charity case, Marcus. I'm not a project for you to feel good about. I know, Marcus said. That's not what this is. Or at least, that's not all it is. Yes, I wanted to help you. But I also wanted to help myself. To become someone better than I've been. Someone my mother would be proud of. She would be proud of you, Elena said softly. What you did tonight, the choice you made, that took real courage. We'll see if I'm still courageous when Immigration Services shows up to investigate our marriage, Marcus said with a wry smile. Elena managed a small laugh. We'll have to make it convincing. Then I suppose you'll have to move in with me, Marcus said. You and Sophia. My penthouse has plenty of room. Sophia can have her own bedroom, her own playroom if she wants. You can redecorate however you like. Make it feel like a home. I've cleaned your penthouse 3 times a week for 2 years, Elena pointed out. I know every inch of it. It's beautiful, but it's cold. Like a museum. No photos, no personal touches, no warmth. Then warm it up, Marcus said.
Please.
I'm tired of living in a museum. Elena smiled, a real smile this time, and Marcus felt something shift in his chest. Maybe this could work. Maybe they could build something real out of this desperate, impulsive decision. What about your friends? Elena asked. Your business associates? What will you tell them? The truth, Marcus said simply. That I met someone, fell fast, and got married. It happens. They won't believe you.
Probably not, Marcus agreed.
But it doesn't matter what they believe. What matters is what we build together. And Elena, I want to be clear. I'm going into this with the intention of making it real. I'm going to try to be a good husband to you and a good father to Sophia. I don't know if I'll succeed, but I'm going to try. If you can't develop feelings for me, if this doesn't work romantically, we'll deal with that when it happens. But I'm not going into this planning for failure. Elena studied him for a long moment. You're very different from how I thought you were. How did you think I was? Untouchable, she said. Like someone from a different world. I never imagined you'd be sitting here in a hotel robe, married to your housekeeper, planning to raise her daughter. I never imagined it either, Marcus admitted. But here we are. Here we are, Elena echoed. They sat together in the quiet suite, 2 strangers who were now legally bound to each other, contemplating a future that was terrifying and uncertain and full of fragile hope. Outside, the city was beginning to lighten with the approach of dawn. In a few hours, they'd have to face the reality of what they'd done. The legal processes, the skeptical questions, the challenge of blending their wildly different worlds. But for now, in this moment, they just sat together. 2 people who'd taken a leap of faith in the middle of the night, hoping against hope that they'd land somewhere soft. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. I hope you're happy with your decision. You've ruined everything. He deleted it without responding. Victoria was right about one thing. He had ruined everything. His old life, his careful plans, his comfortable predictability. He'd blown it all up in a matter of hours. And somehow, sitting here with Elena, watching the sun rise on their first morning as husband and wife, he'd never felt happier about a decision in his life. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the kitchen of his penthouse, their penthouse now, watching Elena teach Sophia how to make pancakes. The little girl stood on a step stool, carefully pouring batter onto the griddle while Elena guided her hand, both of them laughing when Sophia's tongue stuck out in concentration. Like this, Mama? Sophia asked, her English much improved from months of preschool and constant conversation. Perfect, mi amor, Elena said, kissing the top of her daughter's head. The penthouse had transformed over the past months. Where there had once been stark white walls and minimalist furniture, there was now color and life. Sophia's artwork hung framed in the hallway, enthusiastic scribbles of flowers and rainbows that Marcus had insisted on mounting like Picasso's. Photos lined the mantel. Sophia's first day at her new preschool, Elena and Marcus at a charity gala, her first formal event, where she'd stunned everyone in a simple blue dress, the 3 of them at Central Park, covered in autumn leaves and grinning at the camera. The guest bedroom had become Sophia's room, painted pink at her insistence and filled with books and toys and a princess castle bed that made her squeal with joy every night. Elena had her own room too, though increasingly often, Marcus would wake to find her asleep on the couch in the living room, too restless to sleep alone, too uncertain to ask for more. They were learning each other slowly, carefully. Marcus had discovered that Elena sang when she cooked, that she was brilliant with numbers and had been helping him review financial reports for his company, that she loved old black and white movies and cried at anything involving animals. Elena had learned that Marcus was terrible at mornings without coffee, that he called his father once a week out of obligation but never enjoyment, that he'd started volunteering at an immigration legal aid clinic on weekends, using his wealth to help other families like hers. "Daddy, breakfast is ready," Sophia called out, and Marcus's heart still skipped at that word.
Daddy.
She'd started calling him that about 2 months in unprompted, and he nearly cried the first time. He joined them at the table, now set with mismatched placemats Sophia had chosen herself, dinosaurs and unicorns side by side, because she couldn't decide which she liked better. The pancakes were slightly lumpy, a bit overdone on one side, and absolutely perfect. "These are delicious," Marcus declared, taking a big bite while Sophia watched anxiously for his approval. "Really?" she asked. "Best pancakes I've ever had," he confirmed, and her face lit up like sunshine. Elena smiled at them both, and Marcus caught her eye. In that moment, something passed between them: gratitude, affection, and perhaps the first real stirrings of something deeper. They'd been dancing around it for weeks, the growing attraction, the accidental touches that lingered, the way they'd catch themselves staring at each other when they thought the other wasn't looking. Later, after they dropped Sophia at preschool, she'd clung to Marcus's neck and made him promise to pick her up, which he always did now, rearranging board meetings and business calls to be there at 3 p.m. sharp. Marcus and Elena sat in a coffee shop near their apartment, reviewing documents for Elena's upcoming green card interview. "They're going to ask how we met," the immigration attorney said, a different one than Daniel, a specialist in marriage-based green cards. "They'll want details. First date, first kiss, when you moved in together." "We met at the airport," Elena said, and it was technically true. They'd truly met, truly seen each other, at Gate 47 6 months ago. "And we moved in together immediately after our wedding," Marcus added. "Love at first sight. It happens." The attorney gave them a skeptical look. "The interviewer will try to trip you up. They'll ask about habits, preferences, family details. You need to know each other inside and out." Over the next hour, they drilled details. Marcus learned that Elena's favorite color was yellow, that she was allergic to shellfish, that her mother's maiden name was Gutierrez, that she dreamed of one day opening a small restaurant. Elena learned that Marcus had broken his arm at age 12 falling out of a tree, that he was terrified of spiders, that his father's company had been in textiles before Marcus had transformed it into a tech empire, that he'd always wanted a big family but had thought he'd never have one. Some of these things they'd already known, absorbed through 6 months of living together. But others were new, revelations that made them laugh or stare at each other in surprise or, in one case, when Marcus admitted he'd been in love with his college roommate but had never had the courage to say anything, made Elena reach across the table and squeeze his hand in understanding. "You're doing well," the attorney admitted. "Better than most couples I prep, actually. The affection seems genuine." "It is genuine," Marcus said, not taking his eyes off Elena. After the prep session, they walked through Central Park, neither in a hurry to get anywhere. It was one of those perfect October days, cool and crisp with leaves swirling around their feet. Elena had linked her arm through his without thinking, a gesture that had become natural over the months. "Are you nervous?" Marcus asked. "About the interview?" "Terrified," Elena admitted. "What if they don't believe us? What if they think I'm just using you for a green card?" "Are you?" Marcus asked, and though his tone was light, there was a serious question underneath. Elena stopped walking, turning to face him. "At the beginning, yes. I married you because I was desperate, because I saw a way to save my daughter. I won't lie about that. But Marcus, these past 6 months, They've been the happiest of my life. Not because of the penthouse or the money or the security, though I won't pretend those things don't matter. But because of you. She reached up and touched his face, the gesture tentative but tender. You've been so good to Sophia. You've been so patient with me. You've become my best friend, and I think I'm falling in love with you. Actually, I know I am. And that terrifies me even more than the interview. Marcus's heart was pounding so hard, he was sure she could hear it. Why does it terrify you? Because what if you don't feel the same way? Elena said, her voice small. What if this was always just a rescue mission for you? What if I'm reading things wrong? In answer, Marcus pulled her close and kissed her. Not the brief, chaste kiss from their wedding night, but a real kiss, deep and passionate and full of 6 months of longing. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Marcus rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he said simply. I think I started loving you that night at the airport, and I've been falling deeper every day since. When I wake up and hear you singing in the kitchen, when Sophia calls me daddy, when you curl up next to me on the couch to watch your old movies, those are the best moments of my life, Elena. You didn't just let me rescue you. You rescued me right back. Elena was crying, happy tears this time, and she laughed through them. We're ridiculous, you know that? Telling each other we're in love in the middle of Central Park like characters in a romantic comedy. The best love stories are a little ridiculous, Marcus said, kissing her again. They walked home hand in hand, and that night, for the first time, Elena didn't sleep in her separate room. She fell asleep in Marcus's arms, her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat, and woke up the next morning to find Sophia had crawled into bed with them at some point, wedged between her parents, with her stuffed rabbit clutched tight. The green card interview came 2 weeks later. They sat in a small, sterile office while a stern-faced immigration officer peppered them with questions. Where did you meet? Who proposed? What side of the bed does your spouse sleep on? What did you have for breakfast this morning? Who does the grocery shopping? What's your spouse's greatest fear? They answered every question honestly, their hands clasped together on the table between them. When the officer asked how they'd fallen in love so quickly, Marcus told the truth, that sometimes you don't fall in love quickly, sometimes you fall in love slowly, and then realize one day that it happened without you noticing. We're not a conventional couple, Elena said quietly. I know how this looks. Rich man, poor immigrant, quick marriage. I know you see cases like this all the time, and most of them are fake. But ours isn't. We're building a real life together. We're raising a daughter together. We're learning to love each other more every day. The officer studied them for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he picked up a stamp and brought it down on Elena's paperwork with a decisive thunk. Approved, he said. Your green card will arrive in the mail within 8 weeks. Congratulations, Mrs. Wellington. Elena burst into tears, and Marcus pulled her into his arms, his own eyes wet. 6 months ago, they'd been strangers. Now they were a family, legally and actually, with a future that stretched out before them full of possibility. That night, they celebrated at home with Sophia, who didn't understand why everyone was crying and happy at the same time but joined in anyway, because it seemed like fun. They ordered too much Chinese food, let Sophia stay up past her bedtime, and danced in the living room to music from Elena's phone, salsa and merengue that she taught Marcus, laughing when he stepped on her toes. Later, after Sophia was asleep, Marcus and Elena stood on the balcony of the penthouse, looking out over the glittering lights of New York City. Do you ever regret it? Elena asked quietly. Giving up your old life? Victoria, the simplicity, the lack of complications? Not for a single second, Marcus said firmly. That old life was empty. This life, chaotic and complicated and full of pancake disasters and preschool pickup and immigration interviews, this life is real. This life matters. What about your father? Your business associates? Are they still upset? Marcus had told his father about the marriage a week after it happened. The conversation had gone about as well as expected. Accusations of foolishness, warnings about gold diggers, threats to cut Marcus off from the family fortune, threats Marcus had calmly noted were meaningless since he'd built his own fortune. They hadn't spoken in 4 months. "My father will come around or he won't," Marcus said. "That's his choice. As for my business associates, the ones who matter have been supportive. And the ones who haven't? I've realized I don't need them in my life." He turned to face Elena, taking both her hands in his. "You know what the best part is? Sophia. I never thought I wanted to be a father. I thought I'd be terrible at it, like my own father. But watching her grow, teaching her things, having her run to me when she's scared or hurt or just wants a hug, it's the most important thing I've ever done. More important than any business deal, any amount of money. She's made me better. You've both made me better." "You've made us better too," Elena said softly. "Sophia has stability now, education, opportunities one never could have given her on my own. And me? I'm not just surviving anymore, Marcus. I'm living. I'm going to college online, did I tell you? Business classes. I think I want to start that restaurant after all, maybe something small, serving Guatemalan food. Something to honor where I came from while building where I'm going." "I'll invest," Marcus said immediately. "I want to do it on my own," Elena said gently. "Or mostly on my own. I need to know I can build something that's mine, not just benefit from being your wife." "I understand," Marcus said, and he did. She needed to prove to herself that she was more than what their marriage had given her, that she had value and skills and dreams beyond being Mrs. Wellington. They stood together in silence, wrapped in each other's arms, watching the city below. Somewhere down there, other families were navigating their own struggles, their own desperate moments, their own impossible choices. Marcus thought about the man he'd been 6 months ago, detached, privileged, blind to the realities of people like Elena. He thought about how one chance encounter, one moment of actually seeing someone in pain, had changed the entire trajectory of his life. "I should donate more," he said suddenly. "To immigration legal aid, to organizations helping single mothers, to education programs. I have so much and there are so many people who need help." "You're already doing a lot," Elena reminded him. "The volunteer work, the donations." "It's not enough," Marcus said. "It'll never be enough. But I can try to do more. We can try to do more. Together." Elena smiled up at him, and in her eyes, he saw love and partnership and shared purpose. "Together," she agreed. They went inside, locked the doors, turned off the lights. In Sophia's room, Marcus tucked the blankets more snugly around his sleeping daughter, and yes, she was his daughter now, not just in his heart but legally too, adoption papers filed and approved just last month. In the master bedroom, Elena and Marcus got ready for bed with the comfortable domesticity of a couple who'd been together much longer than 6 months, navigating around each other in the bathroom, discussing plans for the weekend, debating whether they needed to buy more milk. As they settled into bed, Elena curled against Marcus's side, her head on his shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For seeing me. For saving us. For loving us." "Thank you for letting me," Marcus whispered back. "For teaching me what matters. For being brave enough to trust me." They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, and outside their bedroom, the penthouse that had once been cold and empty was now filled with the warmth of a real home. Sophia's toys scattered across the living room floor, waiting to be picked up tomorrow. Photos on every surface, chronicling the life they were building. Drawings on the refrigerator, held up by magnets from all the places they'd visited together, the Bronx Zoo, the Museum of Natural History, weekend trips to the beach. This was Marcus Wellington III's life now. Not board meetings and business deals and superficial relationships, but real connection, real love, real purpose. He traded his perfect, empty existence for this messy, beautiful, complicated life, and it was the best trade he'd ever made. And in the morning, he'd wake up to Sophia jumping on the bed, to Elena singing in the kitchen, to another day of building something that mattered. Another day of being not just a billionaire, but a husband and a father, and a man who'd learned to truly see the people around him. It had started with tears at Gate 47. It had become a family at a courthouse in New Jersey. And now, 6 months later, it was transforming into something neither of them had dared to dream of. Not just a marriage of convenience, but a love story. Imperfect, unconventional, and absolutely real. The best stories, Marcus thought as he drifted off to sleep, are the ones you never see coming. The ones that begin with heartbreak and end with joy. The ones that start with a desperate choice and become the best decision you ever made. This was one of those stories. And it was only just beginning. 1 year later, Marcus and Elena stood in the kitchen of their new restaurant, La Estrella, named after Sofia, their little star. Around them, construction workers put finishing touches on the dining room while Sofia sat at a corner table, carefully coloring a menu design she'd made herself. "You ready for this?" Marcus asked, watching Elena survey her dream coming to life. She took his hand, wedding ring glinting in the construction lights. A proper ring now, not just the simple bands from that desperate night in New Jersey, but matching platinum with their anniversary date engraved inside. "Ready," she said and kissed him. "Let's build something beautiful." And they did.